Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the synthesis of yoga by Sri Aurobindo with our beloved Ranga. We are on page 48, beginning with a sentence, by this integral realization.
Before we read the para, let us just see what he has said in the previous para. Okay, so in my own words, I'm just telling you what he has said in the previous para. So, in the previous para, what he said is, considering the all-inclusiveness of the integral yoga, we may expect an integral liberation and not only a one-sided mukti as in the traditional yogas. For instance, the first liberation, which he calls sayujya mukti, as in jnana yoga, which can yield union with the divine in the homogeneous unity, but also liberation in the world of multiplicity. The individual remains free, even dwelling in the physical world with his body-mind life. The second one, then there is the salokya mukti, which is a liberated dwelling in the same world of Satchidananda at whatever level it is. You can experience the Satchidananda at all the levels. In the lower levels you can experience it partly or not fully, but whatever, it is possible. That's a salokya mukti. You are living in the same world as the divine. Then, last but not least, he is saying, the sadharmya mukti, the liberation of acquiring a divine nature by transformation of the lower nature. Okay? So, there is a story of Kutsa. He has not referred to it here, but he is referred elsewhere. Kutsa is a human being and he is riding in a chariot with Indra. And they are going to the heaven, which is symbolic of the journey of yoga. And by the time they come to the end of the journey, Kutsa's nature has become so similar to Indra that no one can make out the difference between them except Indra's wife, because she is absolutely pure, Shachi. So that's the story. So putting on the nature of the divine. Okay? That's the path of the sadharmya mukti, that is the karma yoga. So, in this integrality, in the integral yoga, the sadhak of the integral yoga acquires an integral mukti, all these liberations, including finally from the ego. The liberation then is then valid for all the three states. In other words, transcendent, cosmic and individual. These are the three levels on which the divine can be experienced. When you experience the divine in the transcendent consciousness, you are not aware of the physical world. You are aware only of the divine in himself at the highest level. You have transcended the cosmos. The other experience is seeing the divine in the cosmos. In everything around you, you see him. That's also those who have experienced this. That philosophy is called Pantheism, seeing the divine in the physical world. And ultimately, there is the individual, you realize the divine within yourself, and that leads to intimacy with the divine. So in the integral path, you are likely to get the liberation of all the three. Integral liberation.
How far did pantheism reach?
How far?
How far up did it reach, pantheism?
No, it's not up. It's only in the universe.
It's just in the universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see the divine in everything that is there in the physical forms. Whether it be stone or tree or animal or human beings, where you see the divine presence everywhere. It's not as, you don't see it in the vertical planes above. In the spiritual planes you don't. Okay? These muktis are exclusive. But that's why Sri Aurobindo wants inclusive. He wants all of them together. So what is the method? He will tell you. as you go along. Now we read the next para that we have to read today. By this integral realization and liberation, the perfect harmony of the results of knowledge, love and works. The results of knowledge gives you Jnana Yoga. It gives you knowledge of the divine. Results of Bhakti Yoga, love, the yoga of devotion, it gives you love and intimacy with the divine. And when you do work, Karma Yoga, you put on the nature of the divine. That's what it is. For there is attained the complete release from ego and identification in being with the one in all and beyond all. So the one in all would be the cosmic consciousness, and beyond all is the transcendent. But since the attaining consciousness is not limited by this attainment, we win also the unity in beatitude and the harmonized diversity in love, so that all relations of the play remain possible to us, even while we retain on the heights of our being the eternal oneness with the Beloved. And by a similar wideness, being capable of a freedom in spirit that embraces life and does not depend upon withdrawal from life, we are able to become, without egoism, bondage or reaction, the channel in our mind and body for a divine action poured out freely upon the world. So these are the results of the integral yoga. What they are, he is listing. We'll have a quick look at them. By this integral realization. So what is it? You are not limiting yourself only to Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga. So you are doing the chapter is the conditions of the synthesis. He is discussing how the synthesis can be done. Okay? He'll discuss that in detail also, we'll see. So, by this integral realization and liberation, the perfect harmony of the results of knowledge, love and works. In the traditional paths, if you get knowledge of the divine, which is the Sayujya Mukti, you may not have love. You may not put on the nature of the divine. Your soul has become one with the Supreme Transcendent. And if you have intimacy and devotion for the Lord, you may experience a relation with the divine. But you may not get knowledge. That's what happened to Ramakrishna also in the beginning. Okay? And works. Karma Yoga, if you do, then you put on the nature of the divine. That's the widest of all. Karma Yoga. For there is attained the complete release from ego and identification in being with the one in all and beyond all. The one in all, when you are seeing, you are in the cosmic consciousness. Okay? I can see the divine in each one. I can see the divine in every form that is there. But I can see the divine also beyond all. Beyond all, by definition, is the transcendent. The divine in himself. And when you experience that, you feel yourself to be outside the universe. But the integral yoga, both are there at the same time. Part of your consciousness is there and part of your consciousness is here also. Okay? That's why he's saying, the one with the one in all, the one OCAP. What is this one? The divine presence. So you see the divine presence in everything, and yet you see the divine presence outside everything also, beyond everything. Okay? But since the attaining consciousness is not limited by its attainment, we win also the unity in beatitude and the harmonized diversity in love, so that all relations of the play remain possible to us, even while we retain on the heights of our being the integral oneness with the Beloved. If you are doing Jnana Yoga, you have lost your contact with the body-mind life. You are in the transcendent and you feel that I am not in the physical world. So it's a exclusive realization of the divine. Same thing with the love also. You will get love, but you may not have knowledge, and you feel you have a relation with the divine. But in the integral, you have knowledge of the divine, and you have also love for the divine in everything and even beyond everything. That's what is pointing out. The attaining consciousness is not limited. In the traditional paths, it is limited. It's either knowledge or love. Of course, you can have both, depending on your nature. But in Sri Aurobindo yoga, it's an aim. The other yogas, you may get it. But here you have to get it. It's an aim. Okay. So that all relations of the play remain possible to us, even while we retain on the heights of our being the eternal oneness with the beloved. Note the word play. The play means in the physical world, because the physical world is in movement all the time. And play, the divine is at play here. There is play implies always the Beni as well as the Ananda. There can't be a play without Ananda. So the word play implies deep bliss and ecstasy. The next sentence. And by a similar wideness, being capable of a freedom in spirit that embraces life and does not depend upon withdrawal from life, we are able to become, without egoism, bondage, or reaction, the channel in our mind and body for a divine action poured out freely upon the world. So, when you have this integral realization, you can become a channel for the divine action in the world. This is the important thing, because the idea is to participate in the divine work in the physical world, but he needs instruments for that. So, if you become an instrument, the divine will pour all his knowledge, love, and whatever he wants to achieve, he'll do it through you. That's what the para says. The divine existence is of the nature not only of freedom, but of purity, beatitude, and perfection. An integral purity which shall enable on the one hand the perfect reflection of the divine being in ourselves, and on the other the perfect outpouring of its truth and law in us in the terms of life and through the right functioning of the complex instrument we are in our outer parts, is a condition of an integral liberty. Its result is an integral beatitude in which there becomes possible at once the ananda of all that is in the world, seen as symbols of the divine, and the ananda of that which is not world. And it prepares the integral perfection of our humanity as a type of the divine in the conditions of the human manifestation. A perfection founded on a certain free universality of being, of love and joy, of play, of knowledge, and of play of will in power and will in unegoistic action. This integrality also can be attained by the integral yoga. So, we'll go sentence by sentence and see what he's saying. There is also a footnote.
Yes.
So the footnote is, as the Jivan Mukta, who is entirely free, even without dissolution of his bodily life in the final samadhi. The Jiva is the individual soul, and when the individual soul is free, there is who is entirely free, even without dissolution of the bodily life in the final samadhi. In the Jnana Yoga, there is the dissolution of the body-mind life, and you have the mukti. But the Jivan Mukta is one who is living in the body-mind life, yet he is free. So that's the Only difference he is talking about. So let's get back to what we are reading today. Okay. The divine existence is of the nature not only of freedom, but of purity, beatitude and perfection. So, what does it mean? The divine existence is of nature not only of freedom. Freedom from what? And freedom of who? The soul is free. At present, we think that we are the body-mind life and we are not free. We think we are free, but we are not free. So, who is binding us down? Universal nature. Universal nature is making us dance to its own tune. The body is part of universal matter. The vital is part of universal prana. And the mind is part of universal mind plane of consciousness. All these are determining what you are doing, what you are thinking, what you are emoting. But in the integral yoga, when you attain, the divine existence is not only of freedom, okay, but of purity. Purity means no dirt at all, oneness. The word pure implies only one everywhere, because if there is two, there is a mixture. So then that is not that's not purity. You see oneness everywhere. Beatitude, bliss and perfection. No imperfection anywhere. Sometimes you can't even understand what the imperfections are. Okay? But when you rise to the higher level, you see imperfection. Limitations and imperfections always go together. So, an integral purity, purity of the mind, purity of the heart, and purity even of the body. It is possible for a yogi, to have a pure mind, but he may not have a pure heart, because the light has come and transformed him right up to this much. But another yogi, the light can go down right up to the heart, even the lower. So all this becomes pure. So Srimad is talking about integral purity. Everything becomes pure. I refer you to his poem, The Golden Light. The golden light comes and changes his mind, it changes his heart, it changes down and changes even his body. So that's the integral purity that he's talking about. An integral purity which shall enable on the one hand the perfect reflection of the divine being in ourselves, and on the other the perfect outpouring of its truth and law in us in the terms of life through the right functioning of the complex instrument that we are in our outer parts. The outer parts, our mind, our body, our vital and our body. These are the outer parts. So even that becomes so pure that you become a channel for the divine knowledge, love and power and purity. Everything comes down and can spread through you to the universe. You can become a perfect instrument of the divine. Okay, so in the outer parts. So is a condition of an integral liberty. The integral liberty again, liberty in every sense. Liberty, not only liberty of the soul, but liberty of the body-mind life. That's what he means by integral liberty. Mostly yoga ends with the liberation of the soul. The soul is free now. It is not subject to body-mind life. But the body-mind life is still going on in its old way. That's what you normally see when you are in the consciousness of the self. You are watching your body and your vital and your mind are continuing with their old habits. But you are not bothered. The soul is free. You realize that the body will die one day, the vital also will disappear, it will melt and go away, the mind also will go away, and you will take a new body and a new vital, a new birth in your next life. So you are not worried. But the integral realization wants even the perfection of the body, the vital and the mind. The perfection of the body has not yet been done, but the perfection of the mind and the vital. Many yogis have done it already. Its result is an integral beatitude in which there becomes possible at once the ananda of all that is in the world, seen as symbols of the divine, and the ananda of that which is not world. So, even when you have ananda, okay, we have pleasure in the physical world. There are some things which we like and there are some things which we don't like. But in the integral realization, everything that you did not like earlier, now you will start liking. Because you see it's a divine quality in it. And it prepares. So in other words, you can take pleasure in everything in the physical world. Pleasure, because earlier we were taking pleasure in sweets and we did not like bitter things. Now even bitter things you will start liking. That's what. Srimad goes so far as to say that you will even have the delight of failure. Delight of success you can get very easily. But in the divine consciousness, you will even have the delight of failure. Because you will realize it as a step towards the goal. What is a failure if you see really? A failure is you are being told that this is not the right way. So in other words, you are being shown the right way. So you have to see it in that way.
Yes.
In fact, he says that. He says, an error is a handmaiden of truth. He says that in synthesis.
Yes.
Error is the handmaiden of truth. When you make an error, now you know that this is not the way you should go. So you look for the right one. It guides you.
Our errors are his steps upon the way.
That's right.
But I still want to understand more about the ananda of that which is not world.
Oh, I think he's talking about the physical world, the cosmos, and the one that is outside the cosmos. The spiritual planes of consciousness. That's what he means. There are three levels. There is the transcendent, there is the cosmic, and there is the individual. So he's talking of the transcendent planes. You can have an ananda which has nothing to do with the physical world.
Yes, yes.
You can have an ananda in the physical world. You can, in fact, you can also say haituka ananda and ahaituka ananda. Hetuka ananda, that which has got a cause. You eat something pleasant, you get pleasure. You hear some music, you get ananda. That is with a cause. But causeless ananda is the one that is not of the world. The world is not causing you any ananda, it's by itself. That's what it means by the not world.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and it prepares the integral perfection of our humanity as a type of the divine in the conditions of the human manifestation. A perfection founded on a certain free universality of being, of love and joy, of play of knowledge and of play of will in power and will in unegoistic action. In other words, he is saying that your consciousness is up there, and even when you are in the body-mind life, you have a divine nature and you are not subject to your senses, and there is no ego, and you are not in ignorance. You are free. You are possessing the body. The body is not possessing you. You are possessing the body, mind and life. You can do what you want with it. You are master of your own mind, master of your vital, and master of your body. That's what he means by free universality of being, of love and joy, of play of knowledge and play of will. Note the word play of knowledge. In the physical world also, knowledge can be of many types, and all is a play of knowledge. There can be knowledge of this, there can be knowledge of that. So many different types of knowledge. Physical knowledge, scientific knowledge, psychological knowledge, spiritual knowledge. So many different types of knowledge. Play of knowledge. Play of will also. There can be different types of wills. Okay, that's what he means. When he uses the word play, it always refers to the physical world. of love and joy. Okay. Of play of knowledge and the play of will in power. Note, play of will in power. You are utilizing your will and power but without any ego. You are absolutely free. When we do something with our will, we expect a result and there is an attachment to what we are doing. But there is no attachment at all. You are doing exactly what the divine is telling you to do. So that is the unegoistic action. If the ego is there, it can never be free. Okay? This integrality also can be attained by the integral yoga. Your consciousness can be up there and your consciousness can be here, but in a purely, perfectly integral purity. Purity of knowledge, purity of love, purity of works. All your actions will be perfect. Perfection includes perfection of mind and body, so that the highest results of Raj Yoga and Hatha Yoga should be contained in the widest formula of the synthesis, finally to be effected by mankind. So note the words, finally to be effected by mankind. Because until now, perfection of body has not yet been achieved. Okay? At any rate, a full development of the general mental and physical faculties and experiences attainable by humanity through yoga must be included in the scope of an integral method. Nor would these have any raison d'être, it's a French word, unless employed for an integral mental and physical life. Such a mental and physical life would be, in its nature, a translation of the spiritual existence into the right mental and physical values. Thus, we would arrive at a synthesis of the 3 degrees of nature and of the 3 modes of human existence which she has evolved or is evolving. We would include in the scope of our liberated being and perfected modes of activity the material life, our base, and the mental life, our intermediate instrument. He is referring back to the earlier chapters where he has said that there are 3 levels of the in nature. Matter, then there is the life, and then there is the mind. And so man has got a choice of 3 types of life. A bodily life, a mental life, and a spiritual life. And that's what he is referring to back again. We'll see what he is saying. We'll have to go to the contents to see which chapter he is talking about. Okay, so I can do that, but we'll finish this para first. Perfection includes perfection of mind and body. You are asking what is perfection? Perfection means no mistake, no error, no wrong thoughts. Your action will be perfect. It will have the result intended. It will never have a wrong result. Perfection includes perfection of mind and body. So that the highest results of Raj Yoga gives you a perfect mind and knowledge, and Hatha Yoga gives you a very healthy body, but it does not give you a perfection of body. You are free from disease and you are free from illness and you have a long life, but of course you are subject to death in Hatha Yoga. But perfection, that's why he uses the words, should be contained in the widest formula of the synthesis, finally to be effected by mankind. So finally, even the body will be deathless. Finally, not now. Perfection of body would include freedom from illness and freedom from death. Perfection of mind would include freedom from error and freedom from limitation. Freedom of the emotional part of the being would be freedom from all the negative emotions. No hate, no jealousy, no anger, nothing at all.
No sorrow. No sorrow.
Yeah. Perfection includes perfection of mind and body, so that the highest results of Raj Yoga and Hatha Yoga should be contained in the widest formula of the synthesis, finally to be attained by mankind. At any rate, a full development of the general mental and physical faculties and experiences attainable by humanity through yoga must be included in the scope of an integral method. Because the other yogas are not bothered about the mind and the vital, nor even the body. They are not bothered at all. But Srimad is saying we must include in our integral system, we must include perfection of mind, perfection of the vital, and perfection even of body. That's his point. The others are not interested at all. Others means the Jnana Yoga and the Bhakti Yoga, they don't care for the body at all. Such a mental and physical life would be in its nature a translation of the spiritual existence into its right mental and physical values. What you can experience in the spiritual planes of consciousness, perfection there can now be brought down into the physical world, into your physical mind, into your emotional part, and your body also. That's what he means. Such a mental and physical life would be in its nature a translation of the spiritual existence into its right mental and physical values. Thus, we would arrive at a synthesis of the 3 degrees of nature and the 3 modes of human existence. The 3 degrees of nature: matter, life, mind. And the 3 modes of human existence: a bodily life, a mental life, and a spiritual life. All are to be included in the integral yoga. That's what it means. Which she has evolved or is evolving. Why is he saying he is evolving? Because according to Sri Aurobindo, most human beings don't have a mind, clear mind. They only have a physical mind, but they don't have a pure mind. The pure mind is a mind that can think logically and without the interference of body and vital. Our mind is all the time being interfered with by the vital. Our desires are coloring our thinking. Our body also is coloring our thinking. I have to do a homework tomorrow, but I played a very heavy football match and I am tired. My body is affecting my mind. I can't do it. So, the body has a tremendous effect on the mind, and the vital also has a tremendous effect on the mind. But the mind will be free of interference of life and body. That's what he means.
So when he says is evolving, he's telling us that nature is working on all of these things also.
That's right. In other words, mental life is not yet perfect in man. It is still going on. There are some people who have reached the pure mind, scientists, philosophers, researchers. They are objective, they are rational. But not everybody is rational. So he is saying it is still evolving. The mind has 3 levels: physical mind, vital mind, and a pure mind. Pure mind, very few have. He is saying the 3 degrees of nature, that's clear, and the 3 modes of human existence, that also is clear. We are not rejecting the bodily life, nor are we rejecting the mental life, and we are including both these in our spiritual existence. Because he is going on stressing this, because in the traditional paths, they don't care for the lower. The body, the vital and the mind, they don't care. They reject it. Okay, so that's why he's saying, we will include all these. Okay. Synthesis, we would include in the scope of our liberated being and perfected modes of activity, the material life, our base, and the mental life, our intermediate instrument. So, the mental life is an intermediate instrument. Why? Because the bodily life is the lowest, the spiritual life is the highest, and the mental life is in between the two. So, we will include the mental life as well as the bodily life in our aim of integral yoga. We will rise to the spiritual planes of consciousness, but we will not reject the body and not reject the mind. That's what he's saying. Okay? So, nor would the integrality to which we aspire be real or even possible if it were confined to the individual. Since our divine perfection embraces the realization of ourselves in being, in life, and in love through others as well as through ourselves, the extension of our liberty and of its result in others would be the inevitable outcome as well as the broadest utility of our liberation and perfection. And the constant and inherent attempt of such an extension would be towards its increasing and ultimately complete generalization in mankind. Until now, in India, the aim of yoga has been individual. The individual has to get liberation and escape. But that leaves the physical world as it was, imperfect. Because the divine needs instruments to work in the physical world. And if you have attained your liberation, instead of escaping into the infinite nihil, it is better to come down here and become an instrument of the divine, and the divine will be able to work in the divine through you. He will be able to work in the individual, in the world, through you, who are now a perfect instrument. So he is saying, not only that, there is another thing. When you are in the cosmic consciousness, okay, I am perfect, but I can see myself in everybody else. But I see the defects and the limitations in others. So, my identification with everybody is not perfect because you are part of me. That's what he's saying. So, the individual liberation is not enough in the integral yoga. Mankind must become also liberated. That is the reason why he has started collective yoga in the ashram as well as in Auroville. Otherwise, it would have been you go to the cave and get your liberation and go away, no problem. The world remains as it is. But he wants to change the physical world also. That's the whole idea. So it must be extended to mankind. But you must not make a confusion. It doesn't extend to entire mankind. It will not. It will be extended to those who are ready for that type of life. So it will be a section. Just as before the man came, there was the animal world. But when man came, all the animals did not become. The animals continue to remain. So there is the race of men, okay? And the animals also remain. So exactly in the same way, when the Superman comes, he will also be there, but men also will be there. And they have to, it's a slow progress. And men will be helped to become Superman. Just as the animals are also helped with their association with human beings to become, in the next life, they can take a human birth. So exactly in the same way, it's a pyramidal structure. Nature is showing you that a divine life is possible here in small degrees.
Thank you, Ranga. Thank you. Namaste all. Namaste. Namaste.